Imagine instantly knowing what someone is truly thinking, even when they're trying to hide it. What if you could finally understand those awkward silences, recognise hidden discomfort, or even spot deception before it impacts you? This isn't mind reading, it's biology. Every single day, you are bombarded with thousands of non-verbal signals. Most of them, you miss completely. We are talking about the subtle language of micro-expressions. In this video, we aren't just going to tell you what they are. We're going to train you. We're going to break down the big 7 universal expressions with a level of detail most people never see. We're going to analyse famous liars, from presidents to disgraced athletes, to show you exactly where they slipped up. And we're going to answer a controversial question. Is one gender biologically wired to be better at this than the other? The answer might upset some of you, but the science is undeniable. By the end of this video, you will never look at a face the same way again. So let's dive in. To understand why we miss these cues, we have to understand speed. A normal social facial expression, the kind you see when you pose for a photo, can last anywhere from half a second to 4 seconds. That's easy to see. But a micro expression? That happens in a 15th to a 25th of a second. Blink and you literally miss it. Why do these happen? It comes down to a civil war inside your head. You have the cortical motor strip. That's the part of your brain that controls voluntary movement. That's the part that says, smile at your boss, even though you hate his idea. But then you have the pyramidal tract, driven by the limbic system, your emotional core. That part is evolutionary. It's primal. It reacts to fear, anger, or disgust instantly, long before your conscious mind can catch up. When these two systems fight, the emotional brain leaks out for a fraction of a second. This is called leakage. Let's look at a real-world scenario. You're pitching an idea for a friend. They nod and say, that sounds great. But for a millisecond, the corners of their mouth dipped and their brow furrowed. If you caught that, you'd know they are worried. If you missed it, you might push forward with a plan that they hate, potentially damaging the friendship. We prioritise words, but words are curated. The face rarely lies if you know where to look. Before we start analysing specific expressions, we have to talk about the number one mistake rookies make. It's called context blindness. If you see someone tapping their foot and looking around the room, you might think, they're anxious, they're hiding something. But what if they just had 3 espressos? What if they have ADHD? What if they're late for a bus? If you don't know they're normal, you can't spot the abnormal. And this is called establishing a baseline. So when police or the FBI begin an interrogation, they don't start by asking, did you commit the murder? They start with boring stuff. Is the AC all right for you? Did you find the parking okay? And what do you do for work? And why? They're calibrating. They are recording the suspect's normal. What is their normal blink rate? Do they usually maintain eye contact? Do they use their hands when they talk? You need to do the same. When you sit down for a negotiation or for a date, spend the first 5 minutes on small talk. This isn't just to be polite, it's data collection. I want you to answer these 3 questions about the person in front of you before you get to the heavy topics. First, the vocal baseline. Do they speak fast or slow? Is their pitch high or low? Second, the physical baseline. Are they expansive, taking up space, or are they naturally guarded with crossed arms? And third, the facial baseline. Do they naturally smile, or is their resting face a bit more serious? Once you have the baseline, you stop looking for specific signs of lying. Instead, you look for deviations. If your normally loud, hand-waving friend suddenly sits on their hands and lowers their voice when you ask about their job, that's the signal. The silence is only suspicious because the baseline was loud. Without a baseline, you're just guessing. With a baseline, you can analyse. Now, before we get into the dictionary of expressions, we need to address the elephant in the room. And I get asked this all the time. Are women naturally better at reading body language than men? Well, the short answer is yes. But I want you to understand why. Because it teaches us then how to learn this skill. Research consistently shows that women possess a slight but significant advantage in decoding non-verbal cues, particularly the subtle ones. There are two main scientific theories driving this. The first is the attachment promotion hypothesis. Evolutionarily, women have historically been the primary caregivers for infants. And infants can't speak. They cannot tell you they are hungry, they're cold or scared. They can only show it through micro movements in their face and their body. A mother who could spot a distressed micro-expression in her baby 1/15 of a second faster than another mother had a survival advantage. Over thousands of generations, this created a biological sensitivity to non-verbal data. The second theory involves the empathising brain type. Cambridge professor Simon Baron-Cohen suggests that, on average, female brains are wired more for empathising, identifying and responding to the emotions of other people. Male brains, on average, lean towards systemising, analysing rules and systems. But men, you're not off the hook. Men tend to be a little bit faster at spotting anger and aggression. And why? Because in, again, evolutionary terms, men needed to spot physical threats from other males quickly to protect the tribe. The takeaway is that women might start with a higher baseline for reading emotion, and men might start with a higher baseline for reading threats. But this is a trainable skill. Biology is just the starting line. Practice determines the winner. Okay, so class in session. Psychologist Paul Ekman identified 7 universal micro-expressions that cross culture, gender and geography. Whether you're in New York, Dubai or the remote village in Papua New Guinea, these faces mean the same thing. And we're going to dissect these one by one. Now, important to add here that these are inherent. They're genetic. These aren't learned facial expressions, because we see these same facial expressions on people that have been blind from birth. So they haven't learned this by looking at other members of their culture, their tribe, their family, and so on and so forth. These are inground inside our biology. So first then is surprise. And this is the brightest of all emotions. It lasts less than a second. It acts as a plate cleanser for the brain. It wipes the slate clean so you can process new information. The mechanics are specific. The eyebrows curve high up, driven by the frontalis muscle. The eyelids open wide so you can see more visual data. You will see white above the iris. The jaw drops open, but the lips are relaxed. There's no tension. In the real world, if you tell your partner you booked a surprise trip and their eyebrows go up but their mouth stays tight, they aren't surprised. They probably saw the email confirmation. Remember, if someone holds a surprised expression for more than 1 second, they are faking it. Real surprise is a spark. It flashes and then immediately morphs into either joy or fear. So next is fear. This is often confused with surprise, but the distinction is crucial. Fear is a survival signal. While the brows go up, like they do in surprise, in fear they are pulled together. This creates horizontal wrinkles only in the centre of the forehead. The upper white of the eye shows, but the lower lid is tensed up. The biggest giveaway is the mouth. The lips are stretched horizontally back towards the ears in a grimace. Imagine you're in a negotiation. You name your price, the client's eyebrows go up and pull together. That isn't surprise, it's anxiety. They are afraid they can't afford it. You need to switch from selling to reassuring. But watch for false positives. Some people have naturally low set brows that look worried. This is why the baseline matters. Then we have disgust. This is the most primal of all expressions, evolved to stop us from eating poison. The glabella, the skin between the eyebrows, lowers and the nose wrinkles upwards. The upper lip raises. This is the #1 signal to watch for in dating. If you mention a hobby and you see a flash of a nose wrinkle, that's the ick. Their biology is rejecting the idea. If you see disgust, change the topic immediately. You cannot logically argue someone out of a disgust response. Fourth is anger. This is the expression of threat and dominance. Brows are pulled together and down, creating those deep vertical 11 lines. The lids tense up, creating a piercing stare, and the lips are pressed firmly together. If you're asking your teenager where they were and their lips have disappeared into a thin line, that is suppressed rage. Also, look for the masseter muscle bulging at the side of the jaw. If someone is smiling but their jaw is pulsing, that is threat wrapped in a smile. Fifth is joy. Most people look at the mouth to spot a smile, but you need to look at the eyes. A fake social smile only uses the mouth corners. A real Duchenne smile engages the muscles around the eye, lifting the cheeks and creating crow's feet wrinkles. If you pitch an idea and your boss smiles with their mouth but their eyes don't move, that is a polite rejection. You can fake a mouth smile, but you can't easily fake those wrinkles. Sixth is sadness, the hardest expression to fake. The inner corners of the eyebrows are drawn up and in, creating a triangle shape on the upper eyelid. The corners of the lips pull down and the chin might wrinkle. If a friend says they are fine, but you see that inner brow raise, they are devastated. It's nearly impossible to move those inner brow muscles voluntarily. So if you see it, that emotion is usually genuine. And finally, contempt. This is the most dangerous one because it is the only asymmetrical expression. One side of the mouth tightens and raises into a half smirk or sneer. Contempt says, I'm better than you. Research shows this is the single biggest predictor of divorce. If you see contempt on your partner's face, the relationship is on life support. You cannot build a connection with someone who looks down on you. We've covered muscles, but we need to talk about the only part of the face that is practically impossible to control. It's the eyes, or more specifically, the pupils. Your pupils are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. When you see something you like, your pupils dilate to let in more light. If you are on a date and your partner's pupils are giant saucers, they're attracted to you. In business, if a client's pupils dilate when they see a price, they like it. If they constrict to pinpricks, they are rejecting what they see. Now, important to say, there are times when you can control your pupils a little bit using some clever imagery or certain medications. Certain conditions do also make the eyes do certain things. But again, this is where the baseline comes in, right? Also, watch the blink rate. The average human blinks 15 to 20 times a minute. When we think hard, it slows down. When we're stressed or lying, it can skyrocket. If someone's blink rate jumps to 50 blinks per minute when you ask a simple question, they are panicking. And watch for eye blocking, rubbing of the eyes, or long blinks. It's a subconscious attempt to make bad news disappear. Now, let's see what this looks like when the stakes are life and death with 3 famous moments of deception.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Case study 1, Bill Clinton's 1998 denial, when he famously said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. He used an aggressive finger wag to deflect from his defensive position. He used distancing language by saying that woman instead of her name. His eyes narrowed, a micro-expression of controlled anger. He wasn't just lying, he was furious, he had to answer for it. But also, another one there to look for is the finger wag itself. He was pointing that way whilst looking that way. When the eyes and the head don't match, when there's disconnection in parts of your body, it's often forced. It's not natural.
Yes or no? Was one of those banned substances EPO?
Yes. I don't know that I have a great answer. I view this situation as one big lie.
Case study 2, Lance Armstrong and Oprah. Throughout his confession, Armstrong frequently pressed his lips, the lip purse. It signalled he was still holding back. Crucially, even when talking about the people he hurt, the inner brow raise of sadness was absent. His eyes remained hard, suggesting regret for being caught rather than deep emotional remorse.
What did your neighbors, did they see anything? Did your neighbors see anything?
No, like the police department went door to door asking, like, cameras and everything, just like.
What did your neighbors, did they see anything? Did your neighbors see anything?
No, like the police department went.
Case study 3, Chris Watts. Before he was caught for the murder of his family, he gave a porch interview. When he said, "I just want them back," he actually smiled. This is a duping delight, a leak of joy because he felt he was successfully fooling the world. He was also rocking back and forth, a self-soothing mechanism for high anxiety. A grieving father rarely rocks and never smiles. Now, before we move on, I want to clear the air a little bit because there's a lot of pop psychology out there, stuff you've seen in movies or read at airport or seen on Instagram, that is flat out wrong. If you rely on these myths, you're just going to misread people. You're going to falsely accuse innocent people. So myth 1 is looking to the left rule. You've probably heard that looking right means you're lying and left means remembering. There's been extensive peer-reviewed studies that have proven there is no correlation between eye direction and lying. People look away simply to reduce cognitive load. They are blocking out visual distractions to focus on their thoughts. Where they look doesn't tell you if they're lying, it only tells you they are thinking. Myth 2 is that liars can't look you in the eye. Actually, practiced deceivers often give a little more eye contact because they want to see if you are buying their lie. Avoiding eye contact is usually just a sign of shyness or social anxiety. Myth 3 is the fidgeting fallacy. We assume squirming equals guilt, but it's actually a sign of arousal, which could be caused by anything from caffeine to needing the restroom. In fact, many liars become unnervingly still to avoid leaking information. Myth 4 is the truth is in the details. Honest memories are often sketchy and fragmented. If a story is served to you with overly specific, unsolicited details, it's often a rehearsed script and not a memory. Myth 5 is the nose touch. People touch their noses for thousands of reasons. So never bet your reputation on a single movement like a nose itch. In the world of high-stakes analysis, we never look at a single gesture. We look for clusters. If they touch their nose and their blink rate triples and they show a grimace, now you've got a signal. Now a warning. You're learning a superpower, but it has a weakness called the Othello error. This is when you see an emotion but misinterpret the cause. A person might show fear, not because they're guilty, but because they're afraid of not being believed. Micro expressions tell you what a person is feeling, not why. The goal of this skill isn't to play gotcha, it's empathy. If you see sadness on a friend's face who claims they're fine, the correct move isn't to call them out. It's to gently create a space where they feel safe enough to drop the mask. Social intelligence is a muscle. If you want to grow it, here's your homework. Pick 1 or 2 low-stakes conversations a day. Stop thinking about what you're going to say next and just watch. Watch for the flash of the eyes, the tension in the lip. You will realise that people are screaming their emotions at you all day long without saying a word. Now look, this video is just the tip of the iceberg. I've got a massive lineup of content coming soon covering more advanced body language, vocal tonality and some persuasion psychology. So if you want to keep stacking up those social superpowers, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications. However, Watching a video is one thing. Applying it to your unique situation is another. And if you're serious about mastering these skills, whether it's for high stakes negotiations or advancing your career or in your romantic life, I do some deep dives. One-on-one coaching. We analyse your specific interactions and build a custom roadmap for your social intelligence. I'll drop a link to my calendar in the description. Book a 3, 15, 30-minute consultation chat with me, and let's discuss exactly how we can elevate your communication game. Start observing, start connecting, and I'll see you in the next one.